The best two words in all of sports. Game 7. We had one last night in the NBA. The Florida Panthers won one on this very day just a year ago. And we have one, should be a good one tonight in store in the Stanley Cup playoffs. What's up, Florida Panthers Daily? I'm Andrew Sheridan back here with you for another week right here, part of the Fan Arch community, as we are now on to May 18th. You had the Preakness Stakes over the weekend. You had a PGA Championship over the weekend. You had some exciting hockey over the weekend. My weekend was spent inside Ben Hill Griffin and outside Ben Hill Griffin Stadium to watch Morgan Wallen perform back-to-back nights up here in Gainesville. That's up on my social media at AJ Sheridan Radio. That's where I keep you up to date on everything surrounding the Florida Panthers, the NHL playoffs. Again, this weekend was just covering something else. But if you're new here on Florida Panthers Daily, we go every single day, Monday through Friday, giving you everything you need to know in about 10-15 minutes on your commute to work, your walk in the afternoon, whatever it is. If you got 10-15 minutes and you want to stay up to date on everything happening with the Florida Panthers, from the World Championships going on right now to the Stanley Cup playoffs, this is your spot for that. And I want you to be a part of the show. Go ahead and leave a comment down below here on YouTube. That subscribe button down below does us a lot of good as we are into the offseason, moving forward to the NHL draft coming up. So if you want to stay up to date, that subscribe button down below, Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, Florida Panthers Daily, Monday through Friday, right here, part of the Fan Arch community. I mentioned Game 7. And I mentioned a year ago today, because we've been doing this day in Florida Panthers history, looking back on some of the playoff wins from the past few seasons for the Florida Panthers. And well, today, as we sit here on this was on May 19th, so it'll be tomorrow. May 18th. Sorry, my computer just froze on me there. My notes disappeared for me here on May 18th. Completely got discombobulated there. The Florida Panthers had a 6-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs in a Game 7. In a Game 7 that got off to a slow start in the first period. Again, sorry about that. My computer was struggling to pull it up for me here. The first period, we saw no scoring. And as we've talked about the past few days here on Florida Panthers Daily, this was a series where the Leafs were trying to outplay us at our own game. They were trying to get more physical than us. They were trying to hit us more. They were trying to get us to take those penalties that sometimes we would make other teams draw in these playoff series of these deep runs of the past few years. This one was special because it felt like it really was the end of the Leafs. Of course, you know some of the trades that have happened since, but this was one to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. So the Panthers now moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals for the third straight year with this win just a year ago today. And it led to the opposite fall, the demise of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It led to the second straight Stanley Cup Finals, Stanley Cup Championship for the Florida Panthers. Seth Jones broke the ice in the second period. Anton Lundell added one. Joe Negatovich had one. Bobrovsky was good in this one, only gave up one goal, but he didn't have to be great. Panthers scored 6. He only had to make 19 saves in this game. And that's what this Florida Panther team has done over the past few seasons, is wear teams down, dominate puck possession, and then obviously when you are up 3-0 at the end of the second period, it's going to get a little out of hand. At least that's what we thought. Remember, the Maple Leafs got one early in the third period, and it was kind of like the barn started to rock again up there a little bit, and about 40 seconds after that, E2 Luosterainen from Brad Marchand put the silencer into the crowd up there. Marchand would get an empty netter later in the game. Of course, you knew his success against the Toronto Maple Leafs in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he just added to it in this Game 7. And it's funny where we sit just a year removed from this game, because I mentioned the Maple Leafs franchise, this was kind of the end of what it looked to be kind of their window to win, where the Florida Panthers were still winning at this time. But then you take a look at the draft lottery this year. You take a look at the Atlantic Division standings. Both of these teams in the 2025-2026 season, the bottom two in the Atlantic Division. The Panthers won some games at the end of the season. They ended their season on a winning streak to get up to 84 points, but they were neck and neck there for worst in the division and the conference with the Maple Leafs, who finished the season with only 78 points. But if you look at this, the Leafs actually had less losses. They had 10 more overtime losses this year. So if the Panthers could have just taken that recipe, they might have been in playoff contention later on. But you know what? I'll take this 6-1 win just a year ago, and they can stay down in last place with us. I mean, we still won the series a year ago. They moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals, and we'll continue to look back on this day in Florida Panthers history as we move throughout the week here on Florida Panthers Dailies, because we got some good ones coming up. You got some Eastern Conference Finals that happen on certain days this upcoming week. A year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The Panthers have been playing hockey at this point in the year for a lot of seasons in a row now. And there's one Panther that is going to be playing hockey again soon, and there's one that made his return to hockey over the weekend. Let's start with the Panther that will be returning to action this week, and that is Matthew Tkachuk. He will arrive in Switzerland for the World Championships on May 19th, so he is still going to miss 2 more games for the Red, White, and Blue, and the Red, White, and Blue could use the help. Their first game when was their first game? On Friday against the host country, Switzerland. The United States lost 3-1 in that game, and you still got some guys like Justin Folk on the team. You got Joseph Woll in net, speaking of the team that we were just talking about, but the Panthers, or the United States of America, only getting 20 shots on goal, so kind of like that Maple Leafs team that we talked about just a year ago. But then yesterday, the USA was able to bounce back. They took down Great Britain yesterday by a score of 5-1, and they doubled their shots on goal. The USA were able to get 40 shots on net in this one, and they only took 1 penalty in this one. Ended up giving up the only goal of the game on that penalty kill, but Team USA may be finding its stride as Captain America, as I nickname him during the Winter Olympics. Well, we'll bring it back now because he's arriving to Team USA here this week, and we'll see if that brings the juice that Team USA needed. Now, I mentioned a Florida Panther got back on the ice for the first time in a while, and he was representing Team Finland. That Sasha Barkov. Welcome back to professional hockey, and it felt good to see the highlights coming out of Switzerland of him with Team Finland. It was his first game since he tore his MCL and ACL in the preseason. We thought maybe if the Panthers stayed in contention, we could have seen him towards the end of the first round of the playoffs, maybe into the second round, but the injuries, Barkov in the preseason, was just the start of him for the Florida Panthers, and it was good to see him back out on the ice. He did notch an assist in his first game. He also had 18 minutes of ice time, so he looks like he is fully back. And who else but Sasha Barkov? 72% inside the faceoff circle. Anton Lundell joked before this tournament that he had to go over there with Team Finland to make sure Alexander Barkov, remembered how to play hockey still after this long layoff. And go watch some of the highlights because he took advantage of his return. And I think he's doing just fine, Lundell. I think he remembered how to play hockey. Speaking of playing hockey, there was a fun game on Saturday night. Well, it was fun for about 2 periods before the Buffalo Sabres, who ended up needing a come-from-behind win, were able to get that win against the Montreal Canadiens, setting up what I started the show with, the best 2 words in sports, Game 7. It was 3-2 at the end of the first period on Saturday, and then in the second period, the roof just came off, and not in the way you would expect when the Canadiens were the home team. It was 3 unanswered in the second, and then they just continued, the Sabres did, to pile it on the Montreal Canadiens in the third period, setting up what is gonna be, I know it will be, a fun Game 7 tonight. I know the odds are about even money. We'll get to some of those odds, and we'll look at those as I give you my best bet here on Florida Panthers Daily in just a little bit. But you got Zach Benson. He got the scoring started early for the Buffalo Sabres, and I want to make a Florida Panther comparison here because we are on Florida Panthers Daily. He's the Brad Marchand of this year's playoffs. Just keep an eye on that when you're watching Game 7 tonight. He had 6 shots in this one. His plus-minus was a +3. I mean, there are a few players on the Sabres that had that. Tage Thompson was one. Dahlin was a +4 for the Sabres. But keep an eye on Zach Benson, as I expect him to play the Brad Marchand role for the Buffalo Sabres as they play Game 7 tonight. And if they win tonight, as they continue to move through the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Of course, the Hurricanes been sitting there on a long rest, so maybe 7 games isn't the best, but maybe waiting this long isn't the best. It'll be interesting to see how the winner tonight fares with the Carolina Hurricanes, who have had a while to prepare now for this Eastern Conference Finals. And if you are a Panthers fan, well, you know a thing or two about playing the Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we've had some success over the Hurricanes, but maybe now that the Panthers are sitting on the couch playing some golf right now, this can finally be the Hurricanes' year. We'll have to wait and see till tonight to see who they get. Canadians, Sabres, Game 7, the over-under 5.5. And the Sabres are slight favorites, but it's pretty much a pick 'em in tonight's game. And Buffalo, it's hard to go against the home team, right? In a Game 7. I told you my last best bet on Friday was the winner of Game 5 will lose Game 6, and that is exactly what happened. Both the road teams winning in Game 5 and Game 6, and Game 4 for that matter, which means I'm going with the home team tonight. I'm mixing it up. I think Alex Lyon should be back in net. I think he will find his swagger. If he knows anything, he's a Florida Panther at heart. He knows how to win a big game. I will stick with the Buffalo Sabres as my best bet of the day here on Monday, May 18th on Florida Panthers Daily. Let me know in the comments down below if you think I'm crazy, if you think the Canadians will pull it off in Game 7, or if you have any questions about the World Championships or the prospects that the Panthers might be looking at in this upcoming draft. Any questions, any comments, leave them down below here on YouTube on Florida Panthers Daily, part of the Fan Arch community, and we will get to them tomorrow. And until then, let's go Cats.